I really like Lauren's question in the chat about how you talk with investors who insist that you have a technical founder when you have built a revenue generating business with no code solutions already versus invest in the traction that you've made. Yeah. So I can speak to this. So I run multiple businesses, the largest of which is a $5 million a year business. We've raised zero investor capital and are completely bootstrapped. I started off open to working with investors. When we started, like no code definitely was not a thing. And so there's even less openness to it than there was when we started. My general approach has been that like I refuse to shape my business around what investors want. If they'd like to shape the business and they can launch their own, this is my vision and what I'm looking to build. So that either means that A, it's not the right investor for you, or you might want to really be thinking about how you can run this business actually without having to worry about investors at all. What that takes is a certain kind of business model. It means that certain business models are completely off the table for you. If you want to charge like a $10 a month price point, it probably means that like you will not likely be able to bootstrap in the way that you want to. So there's trade-offs. But I highly recommend that you consider like not continuing to spend time and energy on raising money if you are already generating revenue with your business, and to consider that either finding investors that are aligned with you or like not spending time with that. There is two things I would look at. One, there's a book called Profit First by a guy named Mike Michalowicz, which I really highly recommend, around how to structure your business so that it funds itself with its profit. So for example, for us at the end of the year, we have profit and we use it to buy other companies and to scale and like that and to invest in other things internally. And like, that's a model that like we had to work really hard to set up, but it is one that we really love. And we get to make our own decisions about what we do and how we strategically grow. So I would definitely check out that book. And then also I would consider other non-dilutive financing options, right? Like, and in general, like with no code and with the culture that comes with no code, like your job is to like dodge limitations, right? Like get around the limitation. And so if you're finding that the investor piece is a limitation in terms of what they culturally expect you to have, like it's just like a cultural expectation that you have a technical founder. I would also look at non-dilutive financing. Like for us, we took it since we were already generating revenue, we took out debt and paid it back within the year. And then the next year we took out some more debt and paid it back within the year. And like that worked really well for us. I feel like we don't talk about that often, but that also is an option for you. I particularly went to Fundera.com and they did a really great job finding a bunch of different options for us as a small business because we had revenue to show. So that might be a place and an option to check out. And then also consider there are some like equity crowdfunding options that are more and more available now today. They just raised the limit on how much you can raise by just like going to your audience and your crowd and your customers. But in general, I would encourage you to see if you can build this business, particularly if you already have revenue around your customers and have your customers essentially be your investors if that's an option for you.
I love that. You're preaching to the choir here for sure, because like one of the big things that I'm getting frustrated with is this over glorification of raising massive rounds of investment. And also the lack of understanding that most founders have when it comes to what it means to actually have investors. And having raised capital for several companies before, it's like people don't really understand that, you know, this idea of freedom, this idea of be your own boss, work on your own time, that does not happen when you take in certain types of capital. Specifically, you know, and I'm not at all a hater. Like I'm very friendly with, you know, a lot of VCs, and like I'm definitely not saying that like it's just that like most companies are not made for VC funding, full stop. And when we stop the conversation around like, hey, everyone needs to raise VC funds, that essentially makes someone with like a pretty cool idea that could become like a $10 million a year business that, by the way, VCs are not at all interested in, then it's like, okay, there's a problem here in the understanding, and it's like, I think VC will continue to pave the way in you know, for certain startups 100%. But as you were mentioning, Tara, we need to open up this conversation to like, there are so many alternative mechanisms for funding. There's indie VC is a great example of like an alternative to the VC model. They're kind of like, I want to write your last check. I don't want to write like a check, between 1,000 other checks, you know, and then they just have a different thirst for risk, right? And that's what it really is. And I think that we need to start educating people around this topic, because if not, they're spending the first 6 months of building their startup raising capital. And guess what? No investor, no institutional investor is interested in your startup until you have 3 to 6 months of traction, full stop. And that's where the narrative has to change.
Yeah, something I'd like to add. And first, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Lauren. She's a friend of mine from high school, and Palisades High School in the house. Go Dolphins, the mean streets of Pacific Palisades. But she's awesome. And I think having been through 4 fundraising rounds with Tapcart, I've personally seen all of the dilution. I see all the pros. I see all the cons. Do I regret raising money? I absolutely don't, because it helped us get to where we need to go. But maybe we could have explored other options. I know ClearBank is a great example of one. If you're in e-commerce, they will lend you money just based on your metrics. So you connect your bank account, you connect your Stripe, whatever you're using to process payments, and they have an algorithm, and they'll just send you money up to 10,000 up to 10 million, let's say. So there's a lot of options out there, and they don't take equity. So VCs, as you said, Christian, are not for everyone. We're trying to build a multi-billion-dollar company, so maybe it is for us, but definitely not needed for most companies out there, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that raising capital is just another tool in your toolbox as an entrepreneur, right? It's just another thing you have at your disposal. You can use it when it's appropriate, and you don't have to, right? Bubble was bootstrapped, I think, for 5, 6, maybe even 7 years before our founders took on the first round of investment. And it was in the beginning, we're focused on this mission and we're focused on one thing. And then at a certain point the goals shifted to we need to grow fast. And so it was a tool in our toolkit. And I think it's an important thing as a former founder myself. We learned a lot from trying to raise capital, and then realized that there were other things that we needed to focus on that were better for our business. And it was when we had stopped focusing on raising capital and focused on our users and product that we saw things start to happen. So not to say that raising capital is bad, VC is bad, but it's a tool in your toolbox. So investors, some are very smart and have seen a lot of things go right and a lot of things go wrong. There's a lot to learn from that, but you can arguably learn way more from your customers. So the fact that, Lauren, you have a revenue generating business, I think tells you everything you need to know. How can you get that revenue to scale faster, right?